Most people think $100,000 is just 10% of the way to $1 million. And technically, in dollars, that's true. But in time, it's not even close. Because wealth does not grow in a straight line. It grows like a snowball rolling downhill. Slow. Awkward. Embarrassing at first. Then suddenly violent. So here's the reveal. The first $100,000 is not 10% of the journey to $1 million. It's closer to 1/3 of the journey in time. And once you hit $200,000, you're not 20% there. You're mathematically about halfway to $1 million under the same investing rhythm, because compounding finally stops warming up on the bench and starts dropping 30 points a game. That is why Charlie Munger said, the hard part of the process for most people is the first $100,000. Or, in the version everybody remembers, the first $100,000 is a brutal struggle, but you have to do it. And if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or even early 60s, this matters more than ever, because this is the season where life gets expensive, distractions get louder, and financial sleepwalking gets normalized. So in this video, I want to show you why the first $100,000 matters so much, why it feels so impossibly hard, why it gets easier after that, and how to make sure your peak earning years don't get wasted on a nicer car and a flatter retirement account. Here's what people miss. When you start from zero, the first $100,000 takes forever because you are the engine. Your paycheck is doing the pushing. Your discipline is doing the pushing. Your automatic contributions are doing the pushing. But once the portfolio gets big enough, the portfolio starts pushing itself. That's the turning point. A simple way to think about it is this: if you keep investing consistently and earn a long-term market-like return, it can take around 12 years to build the first $100,000, but only about 6 more years to get to $200,000. After that, the slope gets steeper in your favor. So no, the first $100,000 is not just the beginning, in the casual way people say it. It's the hardest third. It's the phase where the machine is being built. And once you cross 6 figures, your money stops acting like a savings account and starts acting like a money printing machine. That's why people who hit $100,000 often look back and say the weirdest thing. Nothing changed, and yet everything changed. Because externally, your life may look the same. Same house. Same job. Same coffee. Same commute. But internally, the math is completely different. Let's talk to the people in the messy middle. If you're in your 30s or early 40s and you feel behind, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are not lazy. And you are not alone. According to Fidelity, the median net worth for households under 35 is just $39,000. And that number often includes assets like a car, cash, and any equity you may have in a home, meaning a lot of that net worth is not sitting in an investment account compounding for your future. And that tracks with real life. Your 30s are brutal financially. You're juggling daycare, mortgage payments, student loans, car payments, insurance premiums, groceries that now cost the GDP of a small country, and somehow you're still supposed to build wealth like a FIRE influencer living in a studio apartment in 2016. Empower even notes that in your 30s, higher earnings can get swallowed by mortgages, car payments, child-rearing expenses, and a few lifestyle upgrades, which is exactly why so many people feel like their income is rising but their net worth is standing still. Now let's run the math. If you invest $100 a week, roughly $400 a month, at 8%, it takes roughly 12 years to hit your first $100,000. 12 years. That's the part nobody posts about. Because during that first stretch, most of the growth is still coming from you. Your contributions are doing the heavy lifting. Your interest is still warming up on the bench. In practical terms, around 6 out of every $10 in that first $100,000 came from your own sweat and blood, not from the market. That's why this phase feels so slow. You're pushing the boulder uphill, and the boulder has the audacity to ask for more. So if you're 34, or 39, or 42, and you feel like this has been a grind? Good. That means you're not doing it wrong. That means you're in the phase where wealth is hardest to see, but easiest to abandon. And that's the trap. Because the first $100,000 doesn't reward drama. It rewards boring consistency. Now let's talk to the people entering their peak earning years. This is where the story gets interesting. Because the jump from $100,000 to $200,000 can take only about 6 years, roughly half the time of the first $100,000, assuming the same contribution pace and similar returns. Why? Because in your 40s and 50s, if you've stayed in the game, your money finally starts working harder for you than you work for it. That's the crossover. And psychologically, it's massive. At first, every milestone feels purchased. Later, milestones feel generated. That's also why your 50s matter so much. Empower calls this period the stretch run toward retirement, when the window is shrinking and maxing out retirement accounts becomes increasingly important. And if you're over 50, there's a secret weapon here: catch-up contributions. This is the part too many people ignore. For years, investors have known the catch-up rule as the ability to add an extra $7,000 to a 401k and $1,000 to an IRA annually after age 50. The current IRS limits have since risen even higher, but the principle is the same. Once you're 50 plus, the system gives you extra room to close the retirement gap fast. In 2026, the IRS says the catch-up amount is $8,000 for most 401k type plans and $1,100 for IRAs. So if you're 52 and thinking, did I miss my shot? No. You may be entering the exact years where your income is highest, your kids are more independent, and the government is literally letting you invest more. This is not the time to panic. This is the time to focus. Now let's talk about why so many people never reach that first $100,000 even when they absolutely earn enough to do it. One word. Lifestyle. More specifically, lifestyle anchors. The 40s are where a lot of people become fake rich. Income goes up. Titles get fancier. Bonuses get bigger. And instead of building assets, they start financing appearances. They buy the bigger house they barely use. They lease the luxury SUV they don't need. They upgrade the kitchen, the watch, the neighborhood, the vacation tier. Or my personal favorite. They start cosplaying as a blue-collar worker in a $90,000 truck. Let me say it plainly. Stop cosplaying as a blue-collar worker in a $90,000 truck. Cars.com recently compared high-end full-size pickup trucks priced around $87,000 to $90,000. And a $90,000 auto loan over 72 months can easily land around $1,226 to $1,245 a month before you pile on insurance, fuel, maintenance, taxes, and all the other real-world costs. That's the pavement princess trap. A truck so expensive it should come with a second 401k, but instead it just sits spotless in a driveway while your retirement account wheezes in the corner. And the sad part? A lot of people aren't broke because they don't make enough. They're broke because every raise gets translated into a monthly payment. That's what Investopedia calls lifestyle inflation, when income rises and spending rises right along with it, leaving you feeling like you never actually got ahead. So if you want to hit the first $100,000, you need lifestyle inflation immunity. That means refusing to let a peak career raise turn into a fancier car, a nicer apartment, or a more expensive version of the same life. You don't need to live like a monk. You just need to stop turning every promotion into overhead. Now here's the part nobody talks about enough. The first $100,000 doesn't just change your math. It changes your nervous system. When you have nothing saved, your brain lives in survival mode. Every bad boss feels more dangerous. Every market dip feels personal. Every layoff rumor feels like a threat to your family. The American Psychological Association notes that money is a top cause of stress for Americans, and chronic stress can affect sleep, anxiety, immune function, and long-term health. APA's expert also points out that people with fewer resources, like savings and reliable transportation, have fewer buffers to cope with stress. And Vanguard found something incredibly important: emergency savings are strongly linked to higher financial well-being. People with at least $2,000 in emergency savings reported a 21% increase in financial well-being, spent less time worrying about money, and were less distracted at work. Those without emergency savings spent 7.3 hours a week thinking about their finances versus 3.7 hours for those with a basic buffer. That's the cortisol shift. Not because $100,000 magically solves your life, but because it moves you from survival mode to opportunity mode. And that leads to something even more powerful: walking away money. At $100,000, a career decision starts to become a choice, not a hostage negotiation. You can leave the toxic boss. You can survive a gap between jobs. You can make a move that helps your long-term career instead of grabbing the first paycheck that keeps the mortgage alive. That's freedom. Not Instagram freedom. Not quit your job tomorrow freedom. Real freedom. The kind that lowers your panic and raises your standards. So how do you actually get there? Here's the least sexy advice on the internet. Stay boring. Use low-cost index funds. Automate your contributions. Capture the employer match. Fund the HSA if you have one. Increase contributions when your income rises. And stop confusing entertainment with investing. Warren Buffett has been brutally clear on this. He recommends very low-cost S&P 500 index funds for most people and has said that a low-cost index is going to beat a majority of amateur and even professional money managers over time. Investopedia also notes that most actively managed funds failed to match the S&P 500 in 2024. So here's the rule. Don't try to beat the market, try to match it. Because the market is already hard enough. You do not need to add meme stocks, overconfidence traps, and late-night AI penny stock delusion on top of daycare and blood pressure medication. And here's the mindset shift I want you to steal. Your 9 to 5 isn't the investment, it's the investor. Your job is not the finish line. Your job is the seed funding. That employer match. Seed funding. That HSA. Seed funding. That automatic transfer on payday. Seed funding. Think of your career as a shadow portfolio, a venture capital firm that funds your real assets every 2 weeks. If you treat your paycheck like spending money, it disappears. If you treat it like investor capital, it becomes freedom. So let's land this. The first $100,000 is hard because it asks everything from you before it gives much back. It asks for discipline before excitement. Patience before proof. Boredom before momentum. It is a brutal struggle. But you have to do it. Because after that, the machine changes. The first $100,000 proves you can save. The second proves compounding is real. And the decades after that determine whether you build freedom, or just finance a more expensive version of stress. So here's what I want you to picture. 20 years from now, there's a version of you sitting at the kitchen table. Maybe they're 55. Maybe 62. Maybe 70. And that future version of you is either looking back saying, "Thank God I got serious when I did." Or they're wondering, "What could have been if I had just started, and stayed boring?" That's the fork in the road. You will either be thanking yourself or wondering what could have been. So start now. Automate now. Invest now. And stop wasting your peak earning years on lifestyle theater. Build the first $100,000. Because once you do, the hill finally starts sloping your way. Like and subscribe if this helped and gave you something to think about. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.